Hi, everybody. Live from Portage Yacht Club, Pinckney, Michigan. This is our show number 547 for Sailing Illustrated on this Tuesday, the 23rd of August. Of course, I'm your host, Tom Eamon. Jonathan Frank is on from Galveston already. Hi, Jonathan. Pleased to have you all here for a very informal show at my home yacht club where I grew up here in Michigan. It's called Pinckney, Michigan, between two little towns, Dexter and Pinckney, about 20 minutes northwest of Ann Arbor, the big university town, or big in terms of in terms of other cities around here, about an hour west of Detroit. You'll have to help us with any audio or any video issues, but I do have a two-camera show here, one on me and then one here on the, it's a little intermittent, but you can see the beautiful day here, not much breeze. There's a pontoon boat going by in the background. I'm at a little cottage just on the club property to the west of Portage Yacht Club. And welcome to all of you, Jonathan Frank, Gordon Smith, Joe Cool, Christopher Gillingham. Thanks, Christopher, for your note. Pedro, foiling sailor down in Oz. Paul Homchick, looks and sounds fine. So thanks for that, Paul. I'm delighted to say also I've been joined, hi, Don Lunabos, that we have with us, look who's here. Julia, you'll be pleased to see that we have Clark Chapin here with me. I didn't have time to do a lower third. Clark, we've got one microphone between us, so you have to speak up. How are you?
I can do that. I can speak up.
How's your wife, Karen? Slide up here a little closer to me.
She's doing fine. I just came from her physical therapy session. They had her standing with the walker and doing some standing exercises.
Do you have a photo that you can show us?
I do. Just a second here.
Where is she, at the university or at another?
She's at a rehab facility that is that is in Ann Arbor, right on the north side of the north side.
Show us right up to, here's the camera up there. So what's that device, a little to your, up this way. What's that device she's in? That white thing in her?
That is called a thoracic lumbar sacroorthosis, otherwise known as a turtle shell. It supports her front and back so that the vertebrae can heal. And the doctors say that process is all proceeding apace. So it's all good news so far.
The big accident, tragic accident, which her mother lost her life in your car when this crouton, who was under the influence of God knows what, but he's been charged now, right? With
the recommendation to the prosecutor is that he be charged. I haven't heard that he's had to answer yet. So.
Well, we'll hopefully that will be taken care of, and hopefully
7 weeks ago.
7 weeks ago, in that tragic accident. On our 4th of July, you were leaving the club here to go.
July 2nd.
Oh, July 2nd. It was fireworks night, which was Saturday the 2nd. Clark, you're a past Commodore of this club. We've known each other for, I guess, 60 years, something like that. And you've been one of the keen racers here. And I'm glad you were able to get out here because I took a video we're going to show of what this club has been about. Founded in 1953, the year I was born, and just a couple years after you were born. You've grown up here. I've grown up here. But great to hear that Karen is doing better after that tragic accident.
Yep. It's going to be a long road. The orthopedic surgeon said 6 to 9 months for the leg to heal, but he expects a fairly full recovery. So.
Okay, well, Clark Chapin's joining us. He's our Fozy, of course, has been key to making this all happen. We call him the navigator because he takes the stats for Julie and myself and carries that forward, gives us the views and so on. And great to see you, Clark. Alistair Murray is saying, Jonathan Frank, so glad to see she is doing better. Gordon Smith, surely all our warmest thoughts go to you both, Clark and Karen. Julie Aaron's checking in from Cleveland. We're in the same time zone, Julie, for a change. And on and on and on. Let's see, there's Alistair Murray. Good day, Tom and Julie. Helmet on, off for a ride. He's on his bike. The what are the yachties or hotties? His bike ride group. Glad to hear you're on the mend, Alistair, and he's been out and about up to Hamilton Island, as you will have seen. So great to have you all with us. A short show, and we do want to just have informal casual because I'm in literally, I hope we don't get knocked off the air. I'm in a cottage on the club property just to the west of the clubhouse, which is behind me here, and right literally, as you can see, on the lake. Not much breeze today. A lot of power boats right here in front of the cottage, a few sailboats here at the club, And we'll tell you about that as this club used to have 200 sailboats and now maybe has 20, and the rest are power boats, a bit of a sign of the proverbial times. Graham Sweeney up in the Shetlands and Yell in Scotland saying speedy recovery. Karen, Fritz Mueller down in Miami. Hi, Fritz. Don Lunabosen up in wine country. I used to say across the bridge, but across the country today, saying get well soon. Andrew Pindar over in the UK, ongoing warmest regards and best wishes to Clark and family. Stingray, does Portage Bay have an open bar even on Tuesdays? Clark, what? You'll have to answer that one for Stingray.
No.
Club is closed Mondays and Tuesdays like most
Yeah.
clubs. The boats that everybody's using or has access to their boats. I see a number of people out here today and yesterday using their boats. What is a gorgeous day? Again, I cut back out here to camera 2. What are those clouds, Clark? Are those nimbo? What are those clouds called?
I'm not the cloud expert.
I'm not a cloud expert either, but beautiful day here. About what? 80 Fahrenheit?
Yeah,
High
80
70.
Fahrenheit, 81, so
28
28 Celsius.
And a light breeze. Tuesday is a sailing night here, a racing night. They sail the small boats, the lasers, the sunfish, and anything else on Tuesday nights?
Well, occasionally we'll get an MC scow out, but that fleet has dwindled.
Mostly sunfish, lasers, mostly lasers, I guess. And then Thursday nights, the bigger boats sail. I'm going to race Thursday night. I'm going to race my dad's Interlake, which is the same boat Clark races. It's an 18-foot sloop rig boat designed by a guy called Francis Swiesguth. And Swiesguth designed it as a training boat for the Star down there by where Julie Aarons is for the south shore of Lake Erie.
Sandusky Sailing Club.
SSC, which is to the west of Cleveland, between Cleveland and Toledo. And the Interlake, how many? You've been the class president, the class secretary. Tell me what, there are how many interlakes in the country?
They built 1,440 some odd boats. Of course, not all of them are still in existence, but we have strong fleets in Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. So we just concluded the Nationals 3 weeks ago down at Mansfield, on the reservoir down in Mansfield.
Mansfield, Ohio.
Yep.
Main and jib, a big. It looks a little bit like a star boat because there's a big mainsail and a smaller jib. Low aspect ratio rig, and added a spinnaker. It was originally just a sloop rig, just main and jib, and they added a spinnaker. What year?
In the early 60s, I think. It's the same nominal spinnaker dimensions as the Thistle.
Thistle spinnaker. So 160 square feet.
180, 200, somewhere in there.
Okay. Clark Chapin, our longtime friend and Fozy, as we pan back over here. And we do want to go with a couple of things. I'm not going to do a big thing about what day is this. In fact, I looked, and there's nothing too auspicious today on the 23rd of August. Oh, Clark, maybe apropos you being the superb engineer that you are, do you know what day this is nationally?
No.
It's
International Engineer Day?
well, close. It's National Nerd Day.
Oh.
Now you're certainly not a nerd, but
And I left my slide rule at home.
and you don't have a pocket protector here.
I got a pen.
In your nice
but I don't have a pocket.
international jury. We talk a little bit about the jury work you do, because you've become quite a superb race officer and judge and so on here. But it's at least in the U.S. it's National Nerd Day. You love a nerd day or something, and we're all nerds. Ted Ryman is saying he's a nerd. Ted Ryman's, but he says he's back from a very warm Cape Town, and of course in RSA, the Republic of South Africa. This day in history, I wasn't going to talk about today, this day in history. There's a couple things of note, but nothing really yachting related. Certainly nothing compared to yesterday on the 22nd of August, which would have been, in fact, the 171st anniversary of that famous or infamous race around the Isle of Wight on August 22nd, 1851. You can see there on the poster. I know there's an original, one of those original posters it's framed at the New York Yacht Club. I don't know if others have an original, but yes, Stingray AC0. Prince Albert wore a cup. Gordon Smith, here come the jokes. So you can see it started out, it was the Royal Yacht Squadron's regatta that week, and Her Majesty's Cup, and then Prince Albert's Cup. We won't talk about other things called Prince Albert and why. Then, of course, as any good yachty would do, they have the they had the Royal Yacht Squadron annual ball on the Thursday, and it probably helped the Americans because you would expect the Brits were a bit dusty on Friday, August 22nd, when they had the Royal Yacht Squadron's 100-pound cup. 16 British boats started. They all started at anchor there in the Solent, went around the Isle of Wight clockwise. I think only 13 British boats actually made it around the island. The Yacht America had her anchor line fouled across somebody else's. Long story short, got out around the island and then started going upwind on the south side of the Isle of Wight in the westerly. And her sails, the hull shape was quite different too, as you all know. The Brit boats were in that era were they thought it should look like a whale, so they were broad forward and tapered to the back. And America was very fine forward, tapered in the back, so she had more stability because of that. But perhaps the most important thing were her sails. She had very flat, they were cotton flax sails that were more tightly woven than the sails of the Brits that bellied out. And the Brits also at that point, not just the Brits, but other countries thought the sails should look like the clouds we see here in Michigan. They should be billowing, and it was more of an artistic approach, I guess. But that was not, that was proven wrong, and the Americans with their flat, tightly knit, woven sails, certainly upwind, were very quick, got around the island, got out to the Needles ahead of the rest of the pack, came downhill, and of course famously finished there in front of the squadron, the Royal Yacht Squadron. And supposedly Her Majesty Queen Victoria was there and asked her signalman when America came into view, who is first. The signalman said, "Your Majesty, it's the Yacht America. Who is second?" It's probably apocryphal, but he replied, "Your Majesty, there is no second," or "Mum," as Bob Fisher, the late great Bob Fisher, tells us. Mom, there is no second. Yeah, Bill Wingrove saying the raked masts were also unique. Yes, the Yacht America masts, they had a distinct rake, which also, as we now all know, helps upwind because it reduces the tip vortex off the top of the sails, which is drag. Alan Long says he's an airplane nerd. James Frederick Bland, lots of rain in Texas. Yeah, gosh, darn, some of you have had some real troubles down there. But Lake Travis is not showing much of a raise. Okay, so much for AC0. And that race was on the Friday the 22nd. And it, of course, has become the most prestigious race in our sport since. And we're delighted to celebrate it here in Michigan, at least with Clark and the rest of you on Friday. Well, that's our Friday, on Tuesday, the 23rd of August. Let's get to John Emmett's report. He, bless his heart, sent a nice report in this morning, and here it is.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. I'm here in Portland Harbour at the Skills Week. I'm actually looking after the Ilka 4s, that's the laser 4.7s in old money. And I found a wasp sailor out here who I think may come and do a flyby. So see if you can guess who it is. The Skills Week is an absolutely massive thing, and I'll try and show it a little bit more clearly on the Friday, because we have over 80 sailors taking part. And it's not just going for race week, but it's really focused on skill development. So we've got 11 coaches, really good coaching ratios. So I'm just looking after 8 sailors myself. Going to keep this short, partly because I'm worried, despite the cold weather, that if I talk too much, it will get too hot, and that will be that. But also the sailors are just doing their warm-up. So I think you might have just seen a Lily doing a flyby in the background. It's that 12 knots, which is a little bit marginal for the foiling, but she's up and going. So you might see a flash of red coming anytime. My sailors are coming downwind now for the second lap, and it's really nice just to be part of sailors during the very start of their sailing career, because I can get them, I hope, into good habits. So today, first few days, is about the... Oh, there goes the radio, just to prove it's live. A lot of chat when you have 11... I'll turn that down a bit. A lot of chat when you have 11 coaches, because we tend to be quite chatty people. That was actually Ali, did 3 Olympic Games for GBR, so really nice to see people back giving something to the sport. And I'm just here now at the leeward mark, watching the sailors do their roundings. Centreboard down, make sure you get the downhaul on before the mark. So if they do a good mark rounding, you're going to see them coming past very close by. So you should be behind me. Good job, just get that kicker on. You see a lot of the sails are still saying laser and 4.7 because historically that was what it was called, but obviously it's now the Ilka. So I'm going to end it just there. I don't think there's going to be another Lily flyby. I can see she's doing a bit of swimming. Fantastic show, and yeah, I wanted to show you a little bit more on the water, and now it's time for me to go and video the sailors.
We'll see what anything happens in the background here. No dogs out there, I guess. Got to get a megaphone, John. A traffic cone would do. Our super Fozy John Emmett from the UK, and great to see Lily. And she won that RS 2000 regatta when we reported on that last time, and she's now out there learning this summer. That was her goal. I should stop bouncing this table around because I'm using a camera here on the laptop. I always, with our other guests, I say, please don't put your hands on the table. And, of course, they all do and bounce the cameras around. If you're just joining us, we are live at the Portage Yacht Club, my home club it's the technical, the town is Pinckney, Michigan. It's a little burg just north of here, a couple miles. That's the postal code. Dexter is a town just south of here where I went to high school as kids, and then Ann Arbor, Michigan is the university town, the University of Michigan, one of the best public universities, one of the best universities, public or private, in this country, particularly their graduate programs in medicine and law and business and so on and so forth. Cool and nice to see a bit of coaching in action. Gordon Smith said there of John. My wife was yelling something about the centerboard at me last night, Jonathan Frank said. Jonathan, that was a nice submission. Thank you again for doing that on Friday's show, and we hope others of you will do the same if you're so inclined. Kicker means no stingray, not Cunningham. The Cunningham hole, or the honker ring, as some people in some countries call it. The kicker is the boom vang. That's the device that runs from about a couple feet, depending upon how big the boat is, but on a laser a couple feet aft of the gooseneck, which is where the boom attaches to the mast, and it helps hold the boom down because it runs from the boom down to the base of the mast, and helps trim the boom, helps trim the shape of the sail, helps trim the leech, particularly on the mainsail. And in a laser, it bends the mast and flattens the mainsail quite a bit, so in a breeze you need a good amount of kicker. In fact, in a laser you need a lot of kicker all the time. Let's get here to back to Portage Yacht Club, here, my home club. And again, I did this with virtually no equipment, threw a laptop and a couple other pieces of gear in the suitcase. Didn't even check a bag, so we could do this. Won't do a show on Friday. We won't do a show Friday, but we did want to give you a look around here at my home club. We're on the south end of a 650-acre lake at a club that's been here since 1953. That was started actually back in the 30s during the Depression years, and it was a swim club, swim and bathing beach club that went through a couple different families, and it was summer. It was a seasonal summertime, come out and swim at the lake, kind of a beach. Gradually some boats out here in this marina, which now is a 200-boat marina. And I'm not at the club, I'm at a cottage next door, as I mentioned, which is a rental cottage for members. And then my dad bought the club in 1966, quickly added a lot of boats, and at one point, Clark, we had something like 200 sailboats here, Flying Scots, Interlakes, Rebels, fireballs.
Fireballs.
How you've been here? You've been living here most of your life, I guess all of your life in
Not
the
yet.
in the southeastern Michigan. What happened? How have these power boats overrun the 200 sailboats? Now there's probably 180 power boats and 20 sailboats here.
Well, the one thing about power boats, you don't have to convince people how to operate them. You know, you turn the key, there's a throttle and a steering wheel. Whereas sailing is a skill that has to be acquired.
And it's physical. It's not only, my dad always says, it's not only you have to be physically fit, but you also have to be mentally fit.
Yep.
To be a good sailor.
And as your dad says, it's not for everybody, but it is for anybody.
Exactly right. I've echoed that, and I firmly believe our sport is very good, especially for kids, teaching them self-confidence, self-reliance. We didn't have any supervision here to speak of. We could hop in our boat, whether it was the canoe, whether it was the sunfish, whether it was one of those other little dinghies that we had, or even our adults, our family's boats, our parents' boats. Maybe when we were old enough, maybe 9, 10 years old, to hoist the main on a 19-foot Flying Scot, or in fact, I sailed the Flying Scot because I could use the crank handles and get the main up. That was a lot easier than hauling on the halyard on the Interlake or the Rebel or some of the Thistles. Well, the Thistle had a crank system. So that's how we all got sailing. Clark, as I said, is a past Commodore here at Portage Yacht Club, been here forever, and is a real stalwart in our sport because he does a lot of judging and race management as well. Let's give you a quick look around here. I did 3 short videos this morning, earlier, a couple hours ago, to give you a first-hand look at Portage Yacht Club here in Pinckney, Michigan. Tuesday, the 23rd of August, I'm in Michigan at the Portage Yacht Club where I grew up. You can see here in the background maybe the antenna up on top of Peach Mountain. That's the University of Michigan's WUOM FM station. As we walk into the club, you see the guard shack here. The club's been owned by my dad, by the family, since 1966. Big parking lot. It's closed on Tuesdays, Mondays and Tuesdays, like a lot of clubs. And you walk through, say hi. There's nobody in the guard shack today. Clubhouse was rebuilt in the 90s, so it's been around for a while. And my dad's house over here, the little white cottage down there in the corner, is where I'm staying this week while I visit my parents for the first time since before the pandemic. Some employees here, some members who are out using their boats. 200 boat marina here out front, I'll show you in a moment. A beautiful park, we call it. Grassy area with some tents for private gatherings of family and friends. Dock carts, a typical yacht club setup. And we'll go through the building in a moment. So we walk down through the park. And I spent many a morning as a kid picking up the park on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday mornings after it would get trashed by the members. But nobody does that anymore. Everybody's pretty good about picking up their stuff and putting it in the bins. Volleyball court. As I said, a couple of tents. The clubhouse now over here to our left. Front deck, which is for dining Wednesday through Sundays, afternoon and evening. 200 boat marina. Used to be all sailboats. Now it's more motorboats than sailboats, as you can see. A nice beach, kids' toys, very family friendly. Picnic tables, of course. And the beach, which my dad at almost age 90, he's 89 now, comes out here every morning with the tractor, repiles the sand. The kids love to play on that sand, drags the beach and the shore. And then we walk out the docks. Lasers, Hobies, Sunfish, Interlakes, Flying Scots, a few other boats. Look back at the clubhouse and up the traditional yacht club flagpole. Oh, he's actually turned. When I got here, the flagpole was not oriented properly, and I made not a snarky remark, just mentioned it, and he's already fixed it now and reoriented it. Probably got out here on the tractor. Yeah, walking out on the dock quickly. It's a big swimming area for the kids. As I said, 200 boats here in the marina on a lake called Portage Lake. It's part of the Portage chain of lakes alongside the Huron River. Huron River drains south central Michigan down through these lakes down to Ann Arbor, past Ypsilanti, past the Detroit airport, and down drains into the western end of Lake Erie as we're walking out the docks, obviously. All the boats are on boat hoists, most of them now powered by battery with solar chargers atop. This is the swimming area for the kids. There's some laser docks over there, some little jump docks for the kids looking back at the beach. The skidoos, God forbid that we'd have skidoos, but they are very popular, of course. Lake has, as you can see, cottages. Most of them now are year-round homes. Not that everybody lives out here year-round, but maybe half and half, I'm not quite sure. There is the old venerable committee boat, the Portage Yacht Club committee boat that runs races on Tuesday. Tonight they'll be racing Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. This is the PYC Chase boat, the old Boston whaler, the service boat, the coaching boat, but also if somebody capsizes, the rescue boat. And I'll be live from the cottage. We'll be playing this video, we hope, during the show. I think I have a good enough internet connection. And out here you can see the lake, which is a good sailing lake because it's deep. Down in the southwest corner, it's almost 90 feet deep. And the big bowl here, it goes all the way, you can see up to the north, that's a couple miles and change. And the racing is down here in the bowl. It's shaped like a keychain. There's the swim dock here at the club. And that, where those buoys are, pretty well marks the 6-foot drop-off point. The lake bottom is very gradually sandy, a few weeds here. Goes out to about, well, that area where the swim dock is anchored on the so-called drop-off, where it drops off down to 15, then quickly 30 feet. Quiet day here on the lake. And this is where the racing takes place because it's a big, beautiful, open bowl. 650 acres here at the Portage Yacht Club. And used to be, as I said, all sailboats. We didn't have any power boats here when I was growing up, except for the Yacht Club committee boat and one or two others. A family float boat, as we call them here, these pontoon boats. Very popular in the lakes, really now across the country. And we're here at the Portage Yacht Club. A quick tour. I'll stop this and go back inside and start it again. Okay, there is part one, a rather abrupt ending. Whoever that videographer was, a bit of a crouton. Here at our Portage Yacht Club Stingray, you said it was no, what didn't start in honor of my birth, but what happened, this club, originally the club, Clark, was a paper yacht club. Mm-hmm. Families around the lake, really nobody off the lake, at least originally through the 50s and into the early 60s. It was mostly families, in fact, almost exclusively families around the club that had seasonal summertime cottages. They had an interest in sailboat racing, yacht racing, so they gathered together and literally ran races off the front of one of the cottages over here on the west side. And a guy on one of those paddle wheel boats went out and with a duck horn, not even a megaphone, and if he blew a duck horn, somebody was over the line early, and the line was between the end of a dock and a buoy that was permanently in the water out, and it was a long starting line, and they always started in front of that cottage because the wind normally came from the south or the southwest, and you could get a bit of a beat on the first leg. Sailed around the lake a couple laps, triangles, and then finished back there. Mm-hmm. in front of that cottage, and there were only a handful of boats, maybe 20 boats. You'd go in and tie up at the dock, and the people's docks around the neighbors were not amused sometimes. Although they all it was beautiful. They liked the whole idea, and this was the year of the Kennedys were making sailing popular, and Look magazine, Life magazine. And I remember as a 9, 10-year-old there going over and having a ginger ale after the race while they announced who had won, what classes, and what the schedule was, and so on and so forth. Now then, when my dad bought this place in '66, there were already a couple people here who had boats, and it was very informal, who then joined in the racing, but sailboats. But there were precious few boats here, and then he quickly ramped it up with his partner in the sailboat business, the late great Jack Bartlett, who was quite active in then Nehru and USYRU, and he's the guy that really dragged me into it, and then I helped drag you into it. You've been very active in USYRU, now U.S. Sailing, for what, 40 years?
The first meeting I attended was in 1988.
Oh, so that's not that long ago.
No. Day before yesterday.
Yeah, 33 years. But Clark and his family, I mean, it's 3 generations. Clark's late great mom and dad, who was a Commodore, his dad was a Commodore. His mother was the perennial scorekeeper on the race committee boat. I think every time and we all take turns running the races. There's no professional PRO. There's no even sailing director or anything. It's seasonal. It's not that big a deal. Everybody takes their turn in the barrel several times a season, in fact, running races, particularly for other classes, regattas. And your mom was wonderful, fabulous, as was your dad. And I told you the other night when I got to this cottage, that's the thing that I remember is them having a martini or
a martini, yep.
A martini right out here on the grass in front of our cottage. This cottage where we're sitting today.
Well, the first time we had the Interlake Nationals here, the late great Walter Chamberlain had to come over here to get a drink. We pointed him across the driveway.
Well, Guy Briere is on here, and he will remember Walt Chamberlain from Bay Waveland, Bay St. Louis, Bay Waveland Yacht Club and Southern Yacht Club, and a great banjo player. He and I played many hours, one gig or another here or there. Clark Chapin's with us here at Portage Yacht Club in Pinckney, Michigan. We're about 30 minutes into this special show. Wasn't even sure I was going to get on the air. In fact, I'm not sure if we won't get knocked off the air because the way we're doing this is the internet here at the club it's okay, but it's not so much the download speed. You have to have a good upload speed to do this live streaming. And I'm literally streaming through the hotspot on my phone. Luckily, AT&T out here has a very strong signal. Now, I'm doing this at 720p, talking about National Nerd Day, 720p instead of our normal 1080. But able to do it, and thank you all for joining us. Let's go to part 2 of the tour here of my home yacht club, Portage Yacht Club. Out here at the end of what's called B Dock, the second dock out, this is Clark Chapin, our good friend, dear friend, our Fozy, helps us with the show. This is his Interlake in a full cover, canvas cover, and some Flying Scots. He's up on a hoist, also battery operated, solar powered, and that keeps the boats up out of the water and they don't get any growth on the bottom. Some Flying Scots here, and somewhere is my dad's Interlake, I guess in there on the A dock, and I'm going to race that at least Thursday night. As you see, Flying Scots, Interlakes, and a few other of the sailboats, Sunfish lasers and so on, in there on the racks on shore. Okay, that was a brief segment. And now I think, Clark, let's go through a couple comments here because we'll get a lot of them. Vang is a Danish word to catch, Gordon Smith says. Thank you. The boom catch, the boom vang. Thanks, Gordon Smith. Glad you're giving your alma mater credit for a change, Julie. So come on. I'm very proud to have gone to the University of Michigan. Do we know why powerboats are called stink boats? Sounds so demeaning. Well, because they emit diesel fuel. Clark, you're a fuel engineer at Generous Motors, now retired.
Not so much diesel, but particularly two-stroke gasoline. It gives a lot of unburned hydrocarbons and vapor.
And are these engines all two-stroke engines still?
No. What I've found is that the changeover to four-stroke is slower here in freshwater. The saltwater tends to destroy outboard motors on a regular basis. So on the coasts, you don't see very many two-strokes anymore. but they still hang around here. Our committee boat still uses a 2-stroke, but we have a 4-stroke engine on the service boat.
Now, are any of these boats? Some of them are darn quiet. Are any of these boats have electric motors now? Electric engines? Motors?
No, but I think there is a lot more sound muffling in the modern engines than the older ones.
Because I noticed this morning, I'm still on West Coast time, so waking up later than I would normally, but even 8, 9 o'clock, there's people going in and out to go fishing.
Yeah.
And you can barely hear the boats. I mean, they're not making motorcycle type noises or anything else. So Ted Ryman, if you're watching, that was not a comment about your motorcycles. So what's still amazing is how the motorboats have overtaken sailing, and it's just there's not as many people apparently interested in sailing. Welcome home to Michigan. Thank you, Mark Wharton-Reed, who is a Michigander as well, when he's not out and about covering yacht races or sailing in yacht races over on the west side of the state. Alan Long, and you're still alive. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Is there more adult entertainment on a motorboat or a sailboat, I wonder? Gordon Smith is asking. Clark, I think we can skip Gordon's comment. It's probably adult entertainment on both. Replying to pay biogas. Did you have to portage your boat? Now, that's a good question about the name Portage. Clark, do you know how Portage Lake got its name?
Well, it was part of when the traders and trappers,
the Native Americans, the Indians,
the Native Americans, and then the Frenchmen that followed in their footsteps, would come up the Huron River, and then from here would start the portage over to reach the Grand River,
correct,
which would then could be used to get all the way to the other side of the state. But it's here in the middle of the state where a lot of that portaging took place.
The portage.
Yeah,
it was the shortcut to get from Lake Erie, from Detroit, Lake Erie, get over to Lake Michigan and then go down to Chicago or go up north. But you did have to portage your canoe over land from here. It was quite a good, it's probably 60 miles, isn't it, to the Grand River?
Yeah, probably.
Give or take. And
never done that myself, by carrying a canoe, but
God forbid, nor have I. So there are something like 9 portage lakes in Michigan. In fact, there's a Portage Lake Yacht Club down in southwestern Michigan, quite a good club, scow sailing, good sailing club, and that's why this is just simply the Portage Yacht Club. In fact, historically, the founders of this club named it Huron, Huron, Huron Portage Yacht Club, because of the Huron River, to distinguish it from the other portage yacht clubs in the state. But that caused confusion. When I remember out and about doing junior sailing, and they said, "What club are you from? Port Huron Yacht?" No, Huron Portage. Oh, not Port Huron Yacht Club, which of course is the city up on the Lake
Huron.
Lake Huron is it on Lake Huron or whatever it is? Still on the. It is
the name Port Huron.
Port Huron, I guess, but it's right at the bottom of Port Huron before you go into the St. Clair River, or Detroit River, I guess. So yes. There are lots of other portage lakes, apparently, where people portage their canoes to get from one spot to another. But this Huron Portage Yacht Club, my mother and your parents and some of the other elders of the club, founders of the club, started a thespian group, a troupe, and they did talent shows, they did sing-alongs, they did a lot of entertainment here, and they became known, I'm sure my mother's watching, I hope she is, became known as the Urine, you Brits might say, the Urine Shortage Players. That was another reason to rename this from Huron Portage Yacht Club to the Portage Yacht Club. Here's part 3 of that interview and a quick introduction of my dad, who declined to come over here. I said, "Why don't you come over and we'll have a chit and a chat?" He said, "Well, if I leave the office over here at the club," he's 89, he works 7 days a week, all year around, running this place, loves it. But he said, "If I come over to your silly show," he didn't say silly, but he meant it. He said, "There'll be nobody here to answer the phone." Part 3. So we'll take you now inside the club. This is the front deck, the dining deck. Hi, Rick Lyons. Been here 50 years. I'm shooting this for the show today.
Oh, thank you.
North American champion sailor, couple, 3 times, excellent sailor. He's been working here, #1 employee since, I said, almost 50 years. Minimum attire inside the club over bathing suits, t-shirt and sandals, which I have. The typical clubhouse with some trophies and the kitchen, commercial kitchen, and the various trophies, one of which I gave. I don't remember which one now. And 2 function rooms. One is we call the park room because it's over here on the grassy park. And then another one called the lake room because it's more on the lake side of the club. We'll go through here, the men's and the ladies' locker rooms. And then the club office is back here where we'll find Chris, who's been here for 10 years.
Hello.
Right, Chris?
That's right.
And Tom Sr., you're live. Can you hear me okay? His hearing's at 100%. Past Commodore of the Portage Yacht Club, the owner here. I've just shot a video and I'm going to air it on the show at 4 o'clock local. How are you?
Hi.
Anything else?
No.
No other remarks? You want to say hi to Julia?
Hi, Julia. You're looking after Tommy?
She's trying. Chris, Dad, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it from here at the Portage Yacht Club. I'll walk you back over toward the cottage where I'm staying this week while I visit my parents for the first time since before the pandemic. Saw my mother a couple times since we've been here. She lives in Ann Arbor. And this little white cottage, which is here on the property, is a guest cottage, which I fortunately have this week, and is from where we will air this show live at 4 o'clock local time. That's the tour of the Portage Yacht Club here on Portage Lake between Dexter and Pinckney, Michigan, about 20 minutes outside of Ann Arbor. Ciao for now. Okay, enough of all that. And that's our 3-part introduction to my home club, Portage Yacht Club. We love it when you all do similar things for your clubs, for your classes, for where you sail, and especially when John Emmett and Alistair Murray and others of you who've come on, Jonathan Frank did his video last Friday. It was a terrific piece, and we appreciate that very much. Clark, we had a lot of questions here. Let's quick look through here. Nice place, Ted Ryman. Thank you. Very simple, very low key. Where was the skinny dipping section? We skinny dipped. There's a lot of it. All these clubs, I'm sure. The kids, as soon as the parents retired, we were out doing all sorts of things. But we never did drugs. We never really drank because we were busy sailing. And we partied. We did skinny dip. We played pool. The club, and I'm sorry it's not here anymore, at least not much of one, but there was a game room on the ground floor in the old clubhouse, which this clubhouse was built in the 90s, but the old clubhouse, which was this ramshackle wooden seasonal bathing beach building, that building was literally falling down when my dad finally decided to build a new clubhouse. And that clubhouse had a pool table, pinball machines, a jukebox, a ping pong table that got pretty much full-time use, morning, noon, and night, with the kids and even the adults.
Yep, it sure did. Got somewhere back in my photos, I've got photos of all those games being played. And when my son was growing up, part of the deal with going out for a day of sailing is that he'd get 2 different quarters to use in the pinball games, in the video games.
Yeah. Well, they weren't video games. They were old-fashioned pinball machines.
Well, by the time he was doing it,
oh,
it
that's
was,
true. I was long
it
ago.
was 1990 or so.
Okay, so there were video games here.
Yep, a couple. It's fairly simple ones.
Are there any? Okay, Stingray. Now they're getting interesting. Are there any beavers here? I'm sure up on the west side of the lake, Stinger. The beavers are all up by you in the Pacific Northwest, right?
Brooke Smith had one that took a liking to one of the trees on his front lot last year.
Brooke Smith, past Commodore, longtime interlake, good sailor here, lives over on the east side of the lake, and he had a beaver attack?
Yeah, it was attacking his trees. So
a beaver attack. The Commodore was attacked by a beaver in the front yard.
Well, We almost had a Commodore attacked by a snapping turtle a week ago in the mooring area. So.
Oh, really? Well, yeah, one of the questions that always gets asked, excuse my hand in your way, Clark, that gets asked is because this is a glacial moraine lake, it's very shallow, gradually getting deeper until you get, 100 yards off, not even, 50 to 100 yards offshore, and then it drops off. Some call it a kettle bottom lake, and it drops off, but it's a gradually, mostly sandy bottom. So the people they take their boats off the hoist, and you have to walk the boat out. You literally get in the water. It's knee deep, maybe thigh deep if you're way out on the far docks, or waist deep. But those boats you can pretty well sail off the hoist and sail back on, sort of. But you walk the boat out to a series of buoys that are here on the west side of the marina, tie the boat up, hoist the sails, and then sail off those buoys in the shallow water, gradually lowering your centerboard as you get out further. If the wind's on the club, if it's out of the north, it's a bit difficult to get out of here, but normally the wind is out of the west down here. It's out of the west now, or northwest, and you can reach out of the club and reach back in. This is a shot from right here in front of the cottage, so it's more or less the look across the marinas. The bulk of the marinas you can see is to the right. One other question that I always get asked is what happens in the winter. And that's a very interesting thing. It used to be a mess because, in fact, my dad and some other elders around the lake built a dam, caused a dam to be built in the river, just below the lake, way back in the 60s. And that dam maintains the water level above us here in this lake and in the lakes above us up the chain of lakes. So we always have the legal 851.54 inches above sea level, give or take. And it used to be in a dry summer, you might have to walk, there might be 50 yards, 50 feet, maybe 100 feet of sand or more, and sometimes you couldn't even put your boats in the water. I mean, it was that bad in a really dry summer. But now the lake's levels are constant because the dam controls the lake level, at least the water above it, and that's been great. The other thing that happens is that in the fall, in the autumn, and I guess October, they lower the lake level. They start letting water through the dam, more water through the dam, which lowers the lake level by a couple feet, which makes it easier to get the docks in and out because every one of these docks and every one of these hoists, to say nothing of the boats that's sitting on the hoist, have to be taken out. Why? Because it's damn cold here in the winter. The lake freezes over, sometimes a foot or two thick. So, well, can't you leave it in? And yeah, well, you could, I suppose, but then the ice in the spring starts to move around. It thaws all around the lake, and the ice, what do you call it? It is an ice floe, but this big ice chunk in the middle of the lake starts to move around. As the wind blows from the south on a warm day, it blows the ice up to the north end of the lake, and then I get a northwester and a front comes through and it blows the ice down to the south end of the lake, or to say nothing of east and west sometimes. And that ice is a big, heavy chunk, and the wind, it's surprising, Clark, the energy in those ice flows. And we've seen them, I mean, they'd destroy the docks, they would destroy the hoists, they'd destroy the boats on them. And worse than that, in the old days, those ice flows used to come up right onto the grass, destroy the front yards of the cottages, and sometimes hit the foundation of these cottages and knock them off their foundation. So now they lower the lake in the winter because of this dam. And they're able to do that, lower it by a couple of feet so that the ice never flows up onto the shore. Rarely does. If it does, it's not a big deal. And that saves everybody's cottages and front yards. But nonetheless, all of these docks have to start coming out here, and the seasonal cottage people do that starting next weekend, Labor Day weekend. Is next weekend Labor Day weekend?
Weekend after.
Weekend after. So yeah, that's right. We're going back to San Francisco this weekend. The following weekend is Labor Day weekend, which is our big 3-day holiday here in the States, end of summer traditional, and they start taking the docks out that weekend maybe. And why is the other reason do they do that? Because of college football.
Well, yeah.
You got to go watch the Michigan team beat Michigan State and Ohio State, Julie Ahrens. Okay, we got some other comments here, Clark. What a lovely place to grow up. Yeah, Jonathan Frank, it is. It's the weather's nice. It's a nice sailing. It's safe. It's clean. Pontoon City. It is now, Fritz. It for sure has become pontoon, or what we call float boats. Pontoon City. Replying to Stingray, did have a snapping turtle in the mooring area. Oh, did. Oh, you put a comment in, Clark. I see that. Yeah, nice boat hoists, Daniel. Yeah, there's a lot of those hoists. I thought the Huron Indians were up in Canada. Well, they were, Gordon. They also were down here in Michigan. They were, by the way, some pretty tough Indians.
So I understand.
Right? Their reputation was pretty tough. Your dad sounds like a big kid building sand castles like that conical pyramid. He is Peter Stevenson, Pedro Foiling Sailor. He loves nothing more than to drive that tractor around. And we used to, in fact, we still do make fun of him. But he loves to do it. He keeps him healthy, keeps him. But, I mean, he's here running the place 7 days a week, year-round, maybe takes a couple, 3 days off, and has got a nice staff running it. And he's 89. Never, hasn't taken a day off in his life. Hardly been sick a day in his life, except to get his back fixed a couple times. Looks beautifully maintained. It's okay. Thank you. Is the fishing good, Clark?
I would delegate that question to Craig Keevy, but I believe he'd say yes.
Or my brother Paul, who when he comes from Hawaii is a big fisher person. We can't say fisherman anymore, right? It's not politically correct. Yeah, the fishing's fine. Now, somebody asked the question, what is there? What fish? There's what? There's some lake trout. There's some
bass, I think.
Crappie.
Yep, sunfish.
Small lake fish.
Panfish.
Yes, indeed. Very peaceful looking. Yes, it is. That was great, Al Long. Thank you. Facebook user are some maps. Thank you for that. That's probably J. Frederick Bland showing you where we are. Those pontoon boats, Graham Sweeney saying, wouldn't last 10 seconds. Well, no, not up there in the ocean. They're lake boats where we get, what you're looking at out here now. We might, on a really windy day, when it's fetching down and it's blowing from the north all the way down here, you might get a foot of chop, Clark? Not even?
No.
What? Half a foot?
Yeah,
maybe.
6 inches, maybe.
Yeah. Well, we won't get into the jokes about 6 inches, will we? No doubt Stingray will start into that. Duck whistles, love it. Yeah, you can hear the power boats going by. There goes God forbid, I do not like those ski-doos, but the kids do. There goes one going by out there in the lake. You can see it. And you're with one of my favorite crew, Clark Chapin, Joe Holtzman. Tell us about Joe Holtzman.
Well, Joe and I sailed together. I crewed for him the first time I went to the Interlake Nationals. Did that 2 or 3 times with him at the Interlake Nationals. We always had a good time. And
another great sailor, though.
Another good sailor, yeah. And
you changed great to good. Is he only a good sailor?
Well,
Joe,
he's a great sailor. I'm not gonna say that. We won the Challenger division of the Interlake Nationals. My first nationals with Joe steering. So.
And he's a retired now by 20 some odd years, retired engineer here for Ford, and was involved with the original Mustang, wasn't he?
Probably Ford, and then Douglas Aircraft, and then McDonnell Douglas.
Yeah, he went to SoCal to go to work in the aerospace business, and he was in SoCal for a while. Now he is in Estes, Colorado, and he's a regular viewer here on the show. Joe Holtzman, nice to see you on. Daniel Young, yes, AT&T was even good in Mexico on the water. Why I got them? Yeah. Tom, thanks, Alex. Can I look better and lower? That's for sure. And low lighting and no makeup and all that stuff. Haven't had any glitches so far. Thanks, Alan Long. 100 messages. B-Dock is where all the cool boats are at DIYC. Bill, you mentioned earlier in the show, I'd be happy. I don't like to do a lot of traveling around. I traveled so much back in my working days, America's Cup and Formula One days, but going to Davis Island Yacht Club where I've raced fire. Did you ever race at DI? Didn't you have your Interlake Nationals there, Midwinters?
Mm-hmm.
So Interlake Midwinters, Bill Wingrove, the Fireball Midwinters. So that's a very popular Floridian club for us Michiganders. Do you use Michigander or Michiganian?
Michigander. That's my
That's proper.
preference.
Michiganian. Only people from Grosse Pointe only.
I'm depending on people from Grosse Pointe to help me judge the Cal 25 Nationals this weekend, so I'm not going to rise to that bait.
Are you the chairman of the jury?
Yes.
Cal 25. That class is resurgent.
Well, it's hanging in there.
I'm talking about on the West Coast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's resurgent. I've seen a lot of discussion about that lately.
I believe they've got 16 boats registered at this point.
Well, okay, so here on the Great Lakes, not doing quite so well, but Cal 20s were a bigger class here, weren't they?
Um,
On the Great Lakes, from
I-
memory. Maybe not. Okay, you don't see. You would know better than I. Yeah, but Bill, I with great pleasure, I'd come down to Davis Island Yacht Club and do a show and get to see you and some of the others down there in Tampa, St. Pete. Alex Kent, we want to see you race with live video and comments on your strategy. Thursday night, that's a deal. I'm teaching somebody to race, to sail, actually. He's never sailed. I'm teaching him to sail. He's going to crew for me Thursday night. And maybe we can fire up our camera in lieu, because we're not going to do a Friday show. I'm going to take Friday off. This was fun, but I should relax a little bit with my folks. What's this about? Julie Aarons, because they smell awful, not good for us at all. Gaggy. I think she's talking about the stink boats. I have 24-volt electric on my 18-foot sail. Testing is a hybrid, Daniel Young is saying. Small generator, power it, or battery. Interesting. Yeah, there's all those electric boats, the so-called Duffies, that are from Newport Beach, California. Marshall Duffy Duffield, who's a former mayor of the city and a terrific yachtsman, terrific sailor, started that company long ago, and those are electric boats that really dominate Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. There's a fair few down in San Diego and a lot in Marina del Rey and in Long Beach in that area. Sailors don't drink until the racing is over. On the other hand, Julie Aarons, you see that, Clark? Clark, you like your martini.
yes, I do.
We call Clark after the show sometimes. Julia and I will generally call my mom, but we call Clark, and of course they're here in Michigan 3 hours ahead of us. So when we call them at say 3 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock out here, and Clark's usually had a martini by then.
Or working on one.
There's a bar in San Francisco called Martuni's.
No.
Seriously, and it's a really cool sing-along. What do you call that? It's a piano bar. It's a sing-along bar. Well, next time you're in San Francisco, we'll take you there. And you're not just visiting your kid over on the other side in the East Bay. Bill, so a bunch of banjo people, Bajo people, I think he meant banjo people. Any winter activities? Good question, Stingray. The lake freezes over. We always played hockey growing up here. We lived here on the lake just down the shore, and my dad would tractor out, and he loves to drive the tractor, and he would tractor us off once the ice got thick enough, a rink so we could play hockey. We were all hockey players. And we played hockey on the lake, but the problem, again, it's like ice boating. The quality of the ice, here comes Tom Sr. He's making it. We're talking about you.
My keys.
Your car keys. Well, why don't you come? We're live.
I need to go.
Oh, okay. I'll get you the car keys. If you go right in there, they're on the hat. There's Tom Sr. Needs his car keys. He kindly lent me his car keys. Are you coming back for the Tuesday night yacht race?
I'm the race manager.
You're the race manager. Okay, he's got to go pick up his girlfriend and bring her back. And he kindly lent us his car.
Yep.
So we could drive around. Any winter activities at the YC? So aside from doing a little hockey, there was some ice boating here. We had an Arrow growing up. There was some ice boating. But again, the problem is you get maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe a week of good ice, because the problem is it snows and then it melts and then it freezes again, and now you've got crusty,
And there are springs in the ice that give thin spots as well, or in the lake that give thin spots.
and there's not only there's some underwater deep down springs, but there's also a bit of a current that runs from a lake. So, excuse me, Clark, a little lake down here in the corner. But I digress. It can be. We've had some ice boats go off off into the water. So okay, yeah, there's not much. The answer is there's not much. We did ice boat, and if we really had a great, black ice as we call it, I would stay home from high school, and go ice boating all day. You bet. Some kids took the day off to go hunting here in Michigan on the opening
Day, November 15th.
Hunting season. I never hunted in my life. Dad looks great. Sailing keeps you young. My dad is in great shape, as is my mom, at closing in on age 90. Worth a tour. Beautiful, Tom. Thank you. This is very cool. Beautiful club. I have seen some new versions of beach volleyball with the courts in the shallow water area, a couple of inches. Yeah, that's fun. we've got we keep the volleyball away from the beach because the kids, that beach is populated with tykes, little kids, and the mothers are sitting there, the dad's sitting there watching the kids. So we keep the volleyball. It's a big sand pit in the back. I broke my ankle there when Alan Stevens, one of the great sailors in this club, my junior sailing instructor when we were growing up, he went up to do, punch the ball, and he came down on my ankle and broke it. Alan Stevens was our junior sailing instructor. I think, were you this is before your time.
Yeah,
here.
before my time.
And their parents had a cottage here. Long story short, and those of us that were proficient by age 9, 10, 11 at doing buoy landings and docking and, the stuff they were teaching, we'd go through the run-of-the-mill stuff, and then he'd let us tie our boats up to their family dock. We'd go up to his bedroom and read his Playboy magazine. We learned more in that junior sailing program
I'll bet.
than we did on the water. I told that story to my mom the other day. She didn't believe it. But it's true. It's absolutely true. Interesting about in the old days and how the ice was even bigger 40 years ago. True here, too. Yeah, there was more. It was colder winters then. We could sometimes skate on the lake, at least around the edge, at Thanksgiving weekend. And now, Clark, there's been 1 or 2 winters where the lake didn't even freeze over. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Or barely.
Yep, or barely freeze over. The winter of 2014 was quite severe. Everything froze up pretty solid then, but that was 8 years ago.
Julie Aarons, too cold to leave the boats in and causes major damage to docks and how. Yeah, exactly. Ice boating. That's what I learned. Why the docks get taken out of the water? Yes, indeed. Baton Rouge, Baton Cannon down in Charleston. Normally, do they have any cleanup events for the lake area? Yes, there's plenty of that. There still is. In fact, one of the things my dad did, one of the reasons this lake is so clean, my dad and some of the other elders around the lake, a long time ago now, I guess in the 80s, cajoled, got the township boards to legislate, and there's I think 4 different townships here, right? It's 2 counties, because the county line goes right through the middle of the lake, so it was politically difficult. Yeah. They convinced the powers that be to levy all the property owners to pay for a sewer system because everybody had septic tanks all around the lake. And as the lake became more and more full-time cottages and less seasonal, it was one thing to pump your shiza into the septic tank for a couple, 3 months in the summertime, and then it would percolate okay in the winter. But as these houses, cottages became homes, year-round, you really needed to collect the stuff and not have it seep into the water. So my dad, long story short, convinced with some of the other elders to put in a sewer system around this entire lake, in fact, the lake next door, and to build a septic treatment plant over here someplace to the west. And they still, everybody pays a maintenance fee, and I asked my dad the other night about it when we were going to dinner, they've got $1 million+ in their kitty to do the maintenance. So the thing's been well managed. This is the difference between being managed by Washington, D.C. or Lansing, Michigan, or God forbid Brussels. And you got local people doing the local thing, figuring out what needs to get done, and then doing it.
Well, the second thing that's happened is that past Commodore Keevy has established a conservancy that's purchased some wetlands and shoreland areas up on the north end of the lake with the idea and has placed like old stumps and tree trunks and stuff in there to be a natural area to deal with the erosion caused by all the more powerful and bigger power boats, and particularly the wakeboarding boats, to help the lake repair itself. As Brooke Smith called it, Portage Lake's getting a new kidney.
So Craig Keevy, past Commodore Craig Keevy, was a good guy, good guy. Well, yes, the answer is that everybody who uses the lake, particularly the club members, particularly the sailors, because they're all smart, decent people, aren't they? Pike, bass, panfish, yeah. Okay, there must be a perch. Yeah, there's some perch. Gareth Evans, yeah. Michigander sounds goosey. Well, that's the official, I think.
I think so.
I think that's the preferred title, besides Michiganian. Julie's saying we learn to sail on the lakes. It's a different skill. True, and that's why I think San Diego sailors are so good, because that's San Diego Bay is light air, flat water, generally speaking. They can go out in the ocean, which we can't do, and learn to sail in some seaway and in very steady boat speed conditions. But then in the bay, it's shifty and puffy, which is, of course, lake sailing here. It is shifty and puffy. And if you can sail in light air, it's easy to sail in a breeze. Steve Gruber asking if there's any thistles on Portage Lake. There have been thistles on and off. Are there any now, Clark?
No, but the multi-handed boats that we sail and even the lasers, one of the big requirements is you have to be able to have first of all, a centerboard to get in and out of the mooring area and a kick-up rudder, which is why we don't have a lightning fleet either.
Kick-up rudder meaning a hinged rudder that you lower down, because the lightnings all have permanent.
Yep.
I mean, they can have a kick-up rudder, but they're not very fast competitively.
Well, Interlakes can have a single-piece rudder as well, and I've got one that I use for regattas away from here. But I don't think, particularly when we were looking for multi-handed boats, according to your dad, the Lightnings would not even allow a kick-up rudder because they were afraid people would scull with them.
Well, that's right. It's a lot easier to scull if the rudder is up toward the surface of the water. You got a lot better leverage, adult beverage racing fuel. They use the term stink. By the way, we got a lot of comments on here. I'm going to scroll through some of these. This is a really cool show, one of my favorites. Thank you, Stingray. You're very kind. Stingray would like it here. Clark, question for you from Stingray. Did Clark attend UM, then work at Ford? No?
Well, my undergraduate degree is from Oakland University, a smaller school up north of Detroit, in physics, and then my graduate work was at Michigan in the physics department there. Then I worked for the US EPA has a motor vehicle emissions laboratory in Ann Arbor, and then we're General Motors for 32 years. And then after taking some time off during the recession, I went back to work and worked for Chrysler, Stellantis, Fiat Chrysler, whatever their name is this week, and then a company that makes fuel tanks for all of those companies.
So what is your outlook? You're a very broad-minded, socially liberal, progressive, I should say, and you've been working in the automobile fuel business. I mean, you're a specialist in fuel systems, right?
I picked a great time to retire from the fuel tank business.
So that's what I'm saying. What's happening now as Detroit, what's the word I want?
Reinvents itself.
Well, okay, that's even better than what I was thinking. Reinvents itself for electric. What's going on?
It's all the manufacturers, particularly GM and Ford, are pivoting to electric vehicles, but they need the revenue from the current stream of gasoline powered vehicles in order to generate the money to do the investment, the invention of new battery types and other things to move into electrics. Chrysler, I think, is a little bit behind. It was a little bit more behind that, but now that they've merged with and become Stellantis, that they're moving much more strongly in that direction as well.
So you're happy not to be involved in that, or would you be?
Well, it's very interesting, but I wouldn't. They can't. There's a lot of work that still is being done in fuel system engineering, but none of the young engineers are going into it.
What about hydrogen?
Well, the last company I worked for who made fuel tanks is hoping very much that hydrogen is the fuel of the future. It's got a lot of pluses going for it. No hydrocarbon, carbon monoxide, or carbon dioxide. But the combustion temperatures are so high that you do get the oxides of nitrogen that can help cause smog. So it's not a free lunch unless you're using it for a fuel cell that generates electricity.
And those are enclosed. Those are closed systems.
Yeah.
They are
well,
enclosed.
Well, it would go from an oxide, but you wouldn't have the high combustion. You're not burning the hydrogen. You're using it in a system that would that uses air, because it's the nitrogen in the air and combustion that breaks down the nitrogen, and then it combines with oxygen, and you've got oxides, oddly enough, oxides of nitrogen.
Clark,
I hope you're all taking good notes, because this is going to be on the final.
Are you going to race tonight?
Not tonight, no.
Are you racing Thursday night?
Oh, heck yeah.
How many interlakes do we have? Handful?
A handful, yeah.
Okay, good. And maybe we come over here and have a martini afterwards here at the cottage where you and your family, your folks?
Dinner for the
Oh, yeah.
racers is usually at the club afterwards.
It is, okay, and then we'll have a cocktail somewhere.
Well, we'll have something somewhere, but I have to drive home down the same road where the crash occurred.
Yeah, well,
so.
and thank God that wasn't your fault, because that other crouton, well, we'll see. And good news that Karen Chapin is, you didn't join us till now, or didn't hear the top of the show. Karen is doing.
She's progressing. They're all very positive. The therapists and the doctors are very positive. She's had her first round of return visits to the university hospital. So
Good. We'll give her our best. Give her a big hug for us. Not too strong a hug.
No. Unless she's got the turtle shell on.
Yeah, indeed. A few more comments here. There's a back and forth now about a hydrogen. Replying to Graham, what are they doing? Ford built his first factory on land that used to, this is Graham Sweeney, that used to belong to my family. Ford still owe us the money for the land. Graham, good, yeah. I see Steve Gruber saying, yeah, good luck with that. Replying to Daniel Yount, Peter Taylor in New York is saying, I always liked the Flex, the Ford Flex. We seem to be in the minority, however.
Yeah, well, it's a car that looked like the box it came in.
I would like to see hydrogen as a fuel cell and to see the hydrogen made from solar by splitting water.
Yeah.
That's ambitious. Okay, great answer, Clark. Thank you. Stingray saying, Gordon Smith, my number one son started today at the Danish Technical University to study renewable energy engineering. Cool. Now, is that the son, Gordon, that we had on the show, or was that your younger son? Let us know. When you use too much hydrogen, you can really have a really bad fire. Yes, indeed. Rich Fishback is on, and he is a Flex owner. What's wrong with a Flex?
Nothing. But people, I don't think I know people that own them and really like them. There's a lot of interior room, but I don't think the styling was inspired.
Okay, well, Sailing Illustrated is now Automotive Illustrated today with Clark Chapin, our longtime friend and Fozy. Jody Shields is on. Hi, Jody. Saying, I have a good friend in the electric supply business here in Oz. He says that if everyone goes electric cars, they will have to increase the infrastructure sixfold. Never going to happen, meaning the power, infrastructure.
In my opinion, it is going to happen, but it's not going to happen this week.
Yeah.
That as electric cars, the infrastructure needs to develop at the rate at which electric cars are adopted. Those things all have to happen together.
Gareth Evans says it's the best move he's ever made going electric, not going back to petrol or diesel. Oscar Gordon Smith says is the eldest classmate of Emile Chiar. Yes, that's right. You went and looked at the match racing worlds there in France and said hi to. Thank you for sending us that stuff, Gordon, those pictures and videos. Harry, number two son, was on the show. Got it. Okay. Flex is a butt ugly vehicle. That's J. Frederick Bland.
But half the time you're driving at night, it's dark, you don't see it.
That's what they say about your girlfriend or your wife, or they say about us.
That's why I thought the Aztec was a great vehicle for company car drivers at GM. The interior had a lot of really nifty features, and you were always going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark, so you never saw the exterior styling.
My neighbor has a Tesla X. It is stunning. Stingray says, well, the Tesla that's the Camry of San Francisco. We have those on every other corner all over the place. Everybody's got them. Look, we're an hour and 15 minutes in. I think this is a good time to wrap it up talking about cars. Clark Chapin, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Our Fozy, our longtime friend, past Commodore here at the Portage Yacht Club, which is where we are in Pinckney, Michigan. That's the postal code anyway. It's a little town a couple miles north of us here, just northwest of Ann Arbor, about 20 minutes, better known town, which is the county seat of Washtenaw County, and of course the home to the University of Michigan. Thank you all for joining us. There's no kind of an outro. I'll just do it from memory. Julia is home in San Francisco watching this, and she would love to be here herself, but we'll get back next week because I'm not going to do a show on Friday. We're going to take Friday off, spend that remaining time. I'm going back to San Francisco Saturday, but spend the remaining time with my mom and dad and siblings, and we've got a bit of a family reunion here on Saturday as well. So that's Joe Holtzman, a bit of a review. I don't know if Joe's been here in a while, Clark. He may not have seen all that. So that's our little home club here in Michigan. Thank you for joining us. Graham Sweeney, thank you. Like, follow, and share. That's always a good idea. And support us on Patreon, if you would, please. That helps keep us going. And we will see you not Friday, but next Tuesday. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.